handicapping the Belmont Stakes. I'm Mark Midland at Horse Racing Nation headquarters in Louisville, Kentucky. With me is Mike Beer, racing analyst for Timeform US, specializing in New York racing. And Mike, how's it going?
Hey Mark, good morning. How's everything in Louisville? You guys getting the rain we're getting?
No, we missed the rain last night, so we're clear. But everything's supposed to be fast on Saturday, right?
Yeah, I think we have a good forecast after today.
Awesome. So we're going to break down the Belmont field, talk about that a little bit, and show a little bit of the power, the Timeform US figures, and how it can help you find some winners. And so I think, the first question is, when we talk about California Chrome, I mean, he's a big horse. How's he coming into the race, and is he going to do it?
Yeah, that's the logical starting point, I guess, with the 3-5 morning line favorite and the horse who's going for the Triple Crown. I mean, look, it feels like from all reports since he's left Baltimore and shown up in New York a couple of weeks ago that this horse just couldn't be doing any better than he's doing now. And, that's not, a lot of times you'll hear that from the trainer for sure. Every horse that the trainer talks about coming to these races feels like they're doing great. But, all reports about this horse from everybody who has seen him work out, they all really like the way that this horse looks and the way that he's coming into this race. And look, there's no other way to say it, Mark. He's way the horse to beat in here. To me, it feels like he actually has a really, really good shot to do this. I know that the distance is a complete unknown for him, and you could look at him and say he's had a pretty hard campaign already as a 3-year-old, but he feels like he's in a pretty good position on Saturday.
Fans, you can get the Timeform US Belmont Stakes package. Mike's going to do analysis for every stake at Belmont on Friday and Saturday. That's going to be mailed out to you. You get free access to every race in the country, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Great way to get started on Timeform US. It's only $9.99. Unlimited PPs all weekend, plus Mike's analysis on Friday at Belmont and all the stakes on Saturday at Belmont. Great way to go. Great way to get started with Timeform US. Figure-wise, California Chrome, he's been consistent. His last 5 races have been powerful. His figures even went up in the Preakness. So really, not any weaknesses there as far as we can see.
No, he hasn't shown any weaknesses at all yet as a 3-year-old. I mean, he has gone from strength to strength since the season started, and he just runs one good race after another. On our data, the Timeform US speed figures, his Preakness was the fastest race that he's ever run, and so I think you have to take that as a good sign coming into the Belmont Stakes. And look, we'll just see what happens with him. That 1.5 miles, they don't call it the test of the champion for nothing.
One of the things I love about using the Timeform US product is you've got the pace projector kind of lays out the field, and it looks like the pace projectors forecasting California Chrome and Samrat together on the lead in a race that could favor horses on the lead because there's not that much pace. And is that how you see it, or how do you see him and Samrat kind of look at each other for the lead?
Yeah, I did feel like that was a pretty logical way for this race to lay out early anyway, and that's exactly what Pace Projector thinks will happen with California Chrome going, Samrat probably going with him, and we'll just see how fast they go early. This race, our Pace Projector does say it favors horses on or near the early lead. I don't have any real argument with that. I will just point out that, for the most part, Belmont Stakes, I know it's 1.5 miles. It feels like a distance these horses have never been before, and so they might take it a little easy in the first part of these races. That hasn't generally been the case at the Belmont Stakes over the last several years. You tend to get, if not, fast paces, you get legitimate paces in these races. And so I don't think, California Chrome is just going to sort of, stroll on the lead early, and Samrat is not going to apply any pressure on him. I think they might do a little bit of racing early in this race, and we'll see how California Chrome, stands up to that, if that's in fact what happens. I feel like California Chrome will be up there, though. I think he's going to lead from that inside post position to at least establish some kind of position up close on the pace, and then we'll just see how fast they make him go.
I mean, how do you see Samrat, for 1.5 miles? I mean, is this a horse that could do something if he's out on an easy lead, or is it just something where this is a little bit too far for him?
Yeah, I felt like I'm a big fan because I think he's a good horse. I have always, sort of held the position with him that I never felt like he was a horse who was going to continue to get better as the distances got further for him. Maybe that was the case in the Derby, and maybe it wasn't the Monte Carlo. He was, in his defense of the Derby, he did not run a poor race in the Derby. Only got beat about 5 lengths. And he was 4 wide throughout the running there. So it's not like he had some kind of candy trip in there and couldn't get it done. On the other hand, he was getting tired at the end. He was getting tired at the end of the Wood as well, I thought, even though he finished second that day. And it just feels like to me, of all of the horses who have a chance in this race, and he has a chance. He might be in the toughest position of anyone because he's got to go a mile and a half, which I don't think is going to suit him. And he's one of the horses who you feel like, he's got to race California Chrome at some point early in this race. And I feel like that's a really tough position for him to be in.
We're talking about, potential upsetters. And, one of the ones we wanted to key on talking about the Wood here is Wicked Strong. And you were saying that he's got one of the better figures of anyone in the race.
Yeah, to me it feels like he's really the most dangerous horse for California Chrome to have to run against. Not only does he have a really big finishing kick when he's right, but if you go back to his Wood Memorial, which was a really impressive win for him, we gave that race and we gave him for that race a 1:16 time from U.S. speed figure, and that is in fact equal to the best speed figure that California Chrome has ever run, which California Chrome ran that in the Preakness. So. I mean, we have Wicked Strong not only as fast as California Chrome for his best performance, but he ran that race 2 months ago. So, this is a horse who could really be, really still have some improvement in him. And, his Derby, he had post 19 that day. He got hung up a little bit wide early in the race. And Rajiv Miraj, I think, was trying to do the right thing. And he took him towards the inside through the second turn. And it really didn't work out that well for him. I'm not suggesting that he was going to beat California Chrome that day. But he got into an awful lot of traffic in the stretch, and it really cost him something in there. I think he would have been closer if he could have worked a clean run in there. This is a really dangerous horse for California Chrome to have to run against on Saturday.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, he's five and change links back in the Derby behind California Chrome. He's certainly encountered a few links of trouble in there, and not the cleanest trip. And then, like you said, I mean, the fact that he's running the same speed figure in the Wood a couple months ago that California Chrome ran 3 weeks ago. Wow, that could be a big advantage. So then if you start, parlaying that over a mile and a half, and here's a closer, a horse that just kind of keeps coming. And what I like about him is he's an even-paced closer. He's not kind of come from the clouds closer. He's going to kind of be that mid-pack closer that we've seen has done well in Belmont over the last few years.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, too, because you're right about that. He is not this, come from the clouds, one-run kind of horse. He will be able to keep himself in range of this pace, and it's not like he's going to come to the top of the stretch with, 8 lengths to make up in this race. It'll be close. I think by the time they hit the far turn, this horse is going to be in contention in this race, and then we'll just see if he's good enough. I have a little bit of a feeling that he is good enough, and I think, like I said, I think he's a really dangerous horse in here. He just feels like the kind of horse who has a lot of things going for him after his big Wood and his little trouble in the Derby. They skipped the Preakness with him, which I know that that's sort of the new fad with these horses that don't win the Derby. Right. None of them come back in the Preakness. I'm not thrilled with connections that make that move, but. It may work out for Wicked Strong, and he worked very well the other day. His trainer, Jimmy Jerkins, since he's brought his string back up from Florida, they have been running lights out up here in New York. I mean, this horse has a lot of things going for him on Saturday.
All right, so if we're looking beyond, California Chrome and Wicked Strong, we've got to look at the runner-ups in the Derby and the Preakness. And anything stick out for you for Commanding Curve or Right on Curlin?
Yeah, I feel like of the two of them, maybe I would prefer Commanding Curve to Right on Curlin. I don't think there's that much separating the two of them. I've had a thing for Commanding Curve going back to last year. I was a fan of his, and he just felt like to me like the kind of horse who, at some point, the development was going to start happening for this horse. He felt like he had the ability, but it was really raw. And I do feel like he started putting things together this year. His Derby was. His Derby was a very good effort. There was a good pace in the Derby. They didn't walk in there, but it wasn't, one of those Derby meltdown paces. And he was pretty far back in there.
That's right.
And he made a pretty good run to be second in there at a very big price. And he's another one. He sat out the Preakness, and he'll show up here. And I feel like he'll be running at the end of this race. Is he good enough to win this race, to beat horses like California Chrome and Wicked Strong? I don't know if he could beat both of those horses, but. I think he's going to be running at the end. As far as Right on Curlin goes, I like him as a horse. I don't like him that much going a mile and a half on Saturday. Yeah. And, to me, his Preakness was a really good effort. It's the best race he's ever run. he also got a perfect trip in there, just waiting it out as California Chrome had to put away Social Inclusion. And I felt like if he was going to beat California Chrome, he would have done it in the Preakness.
Yeah, I agree completely. You know, the thing about Ride on Curlin is I feel like we've seen the Ride on Curlin show. We know what that is, right? He kind of sits back, he makes his run, he doesn't get there in time, and I agree. I mean, they could have run that Preakness another lap, and he wasn't going to go past California Chrome. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think in this case, then, you know, you're better off taking a shot with something different. And so we're talking about new shooters. You know, I think the obvious new shooter here is Tonalist, and you're saying it's a horse that you like quite a bit.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Tonalist pretty much right from the start. He ran 2 really big races over the winter at Gulfstream Park, and you know, that second start on February 22nd, where, you know, I know he didn't win that day, but the horse that beat him, Constitution, was a pretty good Pletcher horse who unfortunately didn't make the Triple Crown Series, and I felt like Tonalist was really up against it that day on a speed favoring track, and he just had to chase the whole way, and it didn't work out. He's a little bit behind the 8 ball here, and I feel like this just might be, maybe it's a little too soon for him to be running a race like this, and I think as we get further into the summer, you might really see something from Tonalist. Just the fact that Christophe Clement's going to run him in this race probably is a good sign for him, though, because Clement's, you know, a pretty patient guy. I don't think he would run this horse just to run him in this race. And look, the ability's there. You don't feel like distance is going to beat this horse. His Peter Pan last time was a really impressive effort. I think more visually than anything else. On our Timeform US data, we don't have him nearly fast enough to win the Belmont Stakes. So we'll see what happens with him. On the other hand, the Peter Pan was run over a sloppy track. And the more I went back and looked at that race, and he just went right to the front in there, and he absolutely blew that field out. Yeah. I almost feel like he didn't like the wet track at all that day. I mean, he really sort of ran off with Joel Rosario up the backstretch, like he just didn't like the going at all. But, you know, he was good enough and talented enough to run right through it. And I think he'll be better on a fast dirt track, and I think he'll be running at the end of this race. There's tons of upside with him. You know, he would have to be a pretty big price for me to be really interested in him, and I don't know that he will be, but I have to use this horse somewhere.
No, that's really interesting, and I mean, he's pretty much the most lightly raced horse in the race with 4 starts, and he's gone up. His figures have gone up, you know, every race, and that's really interesting that he dominated in the slop and that he might not have liked the slop as much. That's a really interesting comment. All right, and then a couple other long shots. I mean, we've got Medal Count. There's a lot of people talking about Medal Count, and then all the trouble that General A-Rod had in the Preakness. Wow. Either of those kind of catch your eye?
Yeah, they both did. Of the 2 of them, I'm sort of leaning towards Medal Counts. I think they'll both be big prices in here. I don't think there's that much separating them. Whichever one you like, if you do like them, I think that you should definitely use them because they're going to be those kinds of prices in here. General A-Rod, as you pointed out, his Preakness, if you didn't, you know, watch him closely in there, you should probably go back and take a look at it because he did have significant trouble in that race. And, you know, unfortunately for him, they ran that filly in that race, Rhea Antonia, and she just backed up right in his face on the far turn. I mean, he was actually right there in contention at that time, and she just took him right out of the race. I think he did really well to finish where he did that day. Does that make him good enough to win the Belmont Stakes? I don't know, but he's a big price. I would use him if you liked him. I preferred Medal Count a little bit more to him because I feel like Medal Count wants to go the distance, and he will be off the pace in here, whereas General A-Rod might be a little closer to it. Right. And he just might be another one of those horses who has to race California Chrome earlier than everybody else, and he might pay the price for that. Medal Count will be running at the end. And, you know, for what it's worth, who knows if he's good enough in here. But he had a lot of trouble in the Derby as well. I mean, he was making a run through the stretch, and Danza sort of drifted out in front of him. He impeded this horse very badly in that race, and he's another horse like Wicked Strong who wasn't going to win. But he would have been a lot closer at the finish if that didn't.
So, betting strategy, what are you thinking as far as trying to create some value, trying to make some money on the race?
I like Wicked Strong. I'm going to bet Wicked Strong in this race. And, you know, I'm going to use him with Tonalist because I think Tonalist is the upside horse. And, you know, I feel like, you know, if he were to somehow come through and step up and win this race at, you know, 8 or 10 to 1, I'd be pretty disappointed that I didn't use him, being as big a fan as I am. So I'm going to use those 2 horses. And like I said, I like Medal Count a little bit as a, you know, long shot horse to include in this race.